Welcome back to Southeast Texas Weekly. I'm Kevin Steele, and I'm joined by the candidate in District 21 for State Representative Daniel Miller here to talk with us today. Appreciate you coming by, sir.
Hey, thanks for the invitation, Kevin.
Thank you very much. Where do you want to take Texas that can't be accomplished with the incumbent District 21 State Representative Alan Ritter, who, by the way, declined to participate in today's program? We called and asked. Where do you want to take Texas that he perhaps is not taking District 21, and explain who you are as a candidate for us?
Well, let me start with that part first. My name is Daniel Miller, and I'm a candidate for state representative, a Republican candidate, and the only conservative in this race. I live in Nederland. My wife and I are small business owners, and we have 6 children. So, I mean, that's the biographical exposition. But really, what people need to understand about this race is it's a very clear contrast. When people ask about what the critical issue is for the next legislative session, there's not a single answer for that, because frankly the legislature has been mired in moderate philosophy for far too long. So what we have in the 83rd legislative session is a fiscal apocalypse sitting there with a structural deficit of $7 billion. We've got illegal immigration at the border that's costing $8.9 billion every single solitary year to the state of Texas. We've got the federal government and the federal mandates threatening to bankrupt us, and we have to exercise our sovereignty in those regards.
The question that continues to come to the top of the froth here in your candidacy, as you know, is your presidency of the provisional government of a secessionist organization. Explain that.
Okay, and that's a misnomer. First and foremost, we're pegged and have been pegged as a secessionist movement, and that's not entirely true. And I want to explain what the difference is.
We being who? What's the name of the
organization? The Texas Nationalist Movement is the organization.
Texas Nationalist Movement, which is a faction of the Republic of Texas.
Well, yes and no, not really. I mean, there is a history, and you have to understand that virtually all the pro-state sovereignty, pro-10th Amendment movements that are in existence today grew out of that initial political movement. Now, unfortunately...
2 people were arrested for a kidnapping. 2 more people were arrested in plots to assassinate government officials, as high as former President Bill Clinton. So you understand what some of the concern is. How do you answer to this matter that you led a group that was a faction off of that type of thinking?
Well, and I'm going to tell you, that really is how the facts have been misconstrued. It wasn't necessarily that organization that led to that. Those acts were committed by people who left those organizations. And I equate blaming what I've done or what I have done, you know, basically the acts that I have done, or equating those actions with what I have been involved in, with very similar to blaming Christians for the bombing of abortion clinics by Eric Robert Rudolph.
Quickly, let's take a look at one of your speeches on the steps of the state capitol in Austin as part of that organization, part of the group.
Right.
The one thing that we can agree on is the Constitution and our rights are inalienable, and they are worth fighting for. Now, unfortunately, Ed and I have fallen on opposite sides of a particular issue, and that issue is the legitimacy or the acceptability of secession. But as reasonable individuals, we can have reasonable conversations. Unlike these quote-unquote elected officials in Washington, D.C., which try to have unreasonable actions couched in reasonable arguments. They try to reason out through fear, through justice, their lingering encroachment upon our rights and upon the Constitution. And in that, there is no agreement with us whatsoever.
Is that not a form of the inflamed rhetoric that sometimes concerns people out there?
Well, I'm going to tell you this, Kevin, and I make this, and I want to say this and make it abundantly clear for everyone out there. Every state official, when they take office, they raise their right hand and they take an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and the state of Texas Constitution.
Yes, sir.
The state of Texas Constitution starts with the words, Texas is a free and independent state, subject only to the United States Constitution, and the maintenance of our institutions and the perpetuity of the Union depend on the right of local self-government unimpaired to all the states.
What are you trying to tell us?
What I'm trying to tell you is simply this. Texas sovereignty is a fact. Everybody that serves in the government has to take an oath to that part of the Constitution.
Are you telling us that no one within the secessionist organization ever asked for an element of armed insurrection against the United States government?
I'm going to tell you right now that to paint it monolithically is basically intellectually dishonest.
You don't want to, you're saying that you're lumped into a category.
We're lumped into a category, and painting with a broad brush is what got us to this point in the first place. And you know, when you talk about inflamed rhetoric from my part in that particular remark, I think it's time to say the things that need to be said. And those things are pretty harsh. You know, when you've got the head of the EPA going out there and basically equating the EPA's trouncing on the sovereignty of the state of Texas to crucifixions of random individuals by the Roman army, then we're already dealing with inflamed rhetoric. We've got plenty of that out of the federal government, and it's time that we started talking about the hard truths here.
What's the number one thing that you would do for the state of Texas that you would push harder than anything else?
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of the issues that we're dealing with are about fiscal issues. And we cannot escape the fact that $8.9 billion a year of state money goes to illegal immigration. That's the cost. And so we're going to have to, before we begin to start cutting services, cutting programs, we're going to have to evaluate the impact of illegal immigration on Texas government, and we're going to have to roll those things back. And my opponent in this race has voted consistently over and over and over to incentivize illegal immigration. And it's
How so?
Well, he supported in-state college tuition for illegal aliens. He voted against the voter ID bill 5 times since its introduction in 2005. He offered to give state-paid health insurance to illegal aliens through the CHIP program, and it goes on and on and on.
Daniel Miller, we appreciate your viewpoint today. Thank you very
Kevin.
much for coming by.
Appreciate it.
And we'll have more Southeast Texas Weekly when we come back.